Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review full-time reaction after Rangers dropped 2 points at home to Livingston this afternoon. John Lundstram with an injury time, late equaliser after Newbley had fired Livingston ahead early on, but Rangers were unable to find a winner. Lundstram, in fact, heading over in the last gasp, dying embers of the match. Jonny McFarlane is at Ibrox for us. Jonny, and ultimately another disappointing performance that joins an ever-growing list this season.
Yeah, I thought it was a really poor performance, particularly in the first half. The only thing I would give Rangers credit for would be that in the second half, with probably about 15 minutes to go, they started to get a little bit more cohesive and they looked a little bit more urgent in their play. But it was still nowhere near enough, Derek. John Lundstram obviously missing a fairly straightforward header right at the end. It could have changed a lot of the narrative that will be swirling around now. But you can totally understand the frustration of the fans. It was palpable at the end of the game. There was real discontent at Giovanni van Bronckhorst throughout the game, coming from the stands, certainly behind the press box. And it's no wonder, really, because that was not cohesive in any way going forward. Defensively, I thought, Rangers were fine. The goal, of course, is a defensive mistake by James Tavernier. He's done on that right-hand side. The ball comes in, it's not cleared properly, and Newbley, who I thought was a danger, a handful throughout, a good player that Davy Martindale's uncovered there, slots it into the corner. McGregor, I don't think could do anything, certainly on my first viewing here at the stadium. And after that, Livingston just sat in and said, right, what have you got? And what Rangers had is the ability to put the ball into the box from a cross. Apparently, according to the early stats that I've seen, 73 crosses came into the box throughout that game. And, that was a tactic that Liverpool wasn't that bad. Livingston were set up for. David Martindale was in the press conference there, and he said, set the boys up for dealing with crosses in the box.
Yeah, it was
we can
easy.
deal with that. We can deal with that all day long. That's what I hoped they would do, and that's what they did. So ultimately, when you're firing balls into a packed box with a bunch of really big guys, Livingston are a big physical team, you need absolutely devastating quality to make that work. And the balls into the box weren't good enough today. Čolak was very isolated again. The one moment Čolak had was an unbelievable bit of skill with an overhead kick. It shows you the inherent quality that he has. But no one got close enough to him. There wasn't any sense of build-up through the midfield or control through the midfield. It was very bitty. It was very fragmented. Middle to front, just appalling, Derek. I don't know what your take was. You often get a better sense when you're watching it on the TV because you're able to view replays and things like that. I just thought it was an exceptionally poor from Rangers.
Yeah, no, it was boring. I was bored senseless watching it again. Like Dundee in midweek, it was as the comment comes in, it was dross. It was absolute dross. It was, like you said, 73 crosses into the box, Jonny. It's so easy to defend against that. Rangers really failed to get in behind that Livingston defence. Now, we all know they had that low block, what their game plan was, but it's up to Rangers to overcome that. We spoke about our concerns when the lineup was announced about the lack of pace, dynamism in there, and it's evident for all to see. There is no midfield. Rangers have been limping from game to game without a real proper midfield there. And I think lucky to get a point in this game. I know Lundstram has that sitter at the end, but it's dreadful. And a lot of supporters now calling for managerial change, Jonny. You can't deny it that the crowd at Ibrox, the majority, I think, now want something to happen with regards to the manager's position. Now, we all love Gio. I think he's great to talk to. Loved him as a player. Last season, the European run was great, but at the moment, he's not getting a team out this side. And as I mentioned, it's boring to watch. It's really dull from Rangers, and it's difficult to see where improvement comes from.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Gio in the press conference after the game, which we'll be uploading just directly after this, it's, I think, an important watch. He spoke for 11 minutes, and he was dealing with some tough questions, as you can imagine, after the game. He was adamant he thinks the players are still behind him. He feels that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes in terms of players being out of form, psychological issues with that you have to deal with as a football manager across squads. It's not just as simple as people make it out, he said. And certainly he was quite bullish about being able to turn it round. He certainly believes in himself. And you know Giovanni van Bronckhorst, the one thing about him is that he doesn't lack self-confidence. He doesn't lack belief. But clearly he was frustrated with the performance. He was frustrated with especially the start, he said, of the game. He felt that Rangers just didn't start on the front foot like they normally do at Ibrox. Certainly, he said, at home, we normally start on the front foot, and we didn't do that today. And listen, that's a fair comment, wasn't it? Rangers were just sloppy early doors, and it put them on the back foot from the beginning, because if Livingston have that goal to cling on to, they can camp in, and that's just anathema to this Rangers side, isn't it? Fundamentally. So Van Bronckhorst, as I say, was quite dogmatic about the fact that, you know, he feels like he's still got plenty to give. I asked him if he had a message to the fans. He said, look, we're working hard, we're going to graft, and we'll turn it round. Whether he will or not is another question. As you say, Derek, there seems to be a growing sense when you talk to Rangers fans. I mean, we can't put a number on this. I can't say a majority. I can't say what percentage. It's very difficult to do that. But certainly, you know, talking to friends and relatives and people like that who are Rangers supporters, a lot of them, and even ones I would say are quite calm in terms of their approach, just feel like that there's so many warning signs about where this season is going. And you know, at 2 points, Rangers were bang in it. At 4 points, they're still in it. It's a long year. But I suppose the question is do you have faith that it can be turned around at this point? Because of the way Rangers are actually playing, because of the lack of chances they're creating, because of the lack of cohesion in forward areas. You think, do you have a lot of faith in them being able to spin this on its head? It's an incredibly difficult game that they have in midweek that you're off to. Of course, you've got this record, unfortunately, of absolute death on the road.
When Rangers ultimately get pumped on Wednesday, it's got nothing to do with me, folks. I'm not taking the can on this one.
It doesn't get any easier at all. Just being kicked off my seat there by a passerby. But yeah, no, it doesn't get any easier whatsoever. Going to Napoli, that is a tough game, a team in absolutely terrific form. And I think we saw at Ibrox, even when Rangers gave one of their best performances of the season for a large portion of the game, Napoli are a deadly dangerous team. And that's worrying now, I would say. Rangers really have to be ready and up for that one, because that could be a difficult game. And if that becomes another embarrassing scoreline, I think we're into crisis mode at that point. It's no doubt a very, very difficult situation at the moment. The most difficult situation of Giovanni van Bronckhorst's tenure to date as Rangers manager. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah. He was asked at the presser again whether or not like the players have to take responsibility as well, given the number of unforced errors. They were technical errors in the game, and Giovanni said, yes, that's the case. It's a collective responsibility. He bemoaned the lack of second balls that were won in the game. Listen, it's a very Walter Smith thing. Walter was one of the most successful managers in Rangers history for a reason. And, you have to win your second balls when you're Rangers, because you have to win the right to play. Yeah. And I felt watching that once again, those basics today weren't met. Livingston were better at those basics than Rangers were. And that's something Giovanni van Bronckhorst stressed in the post-match as well. Where do we go from here, Derek? I suppose that's the big question. We go to Napoli, and that's worrying.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of Rabbi Matondo and brought on at half-time and then taken off, Jonny?
Yeah, I can clear that up, Derek. I can clear that up. Rabbi Matondo fell on his back and basically couldn't move after that. So he didn't have any mobility, so he was taken off for that reason. Leon King was also injured and taken off because he had an injury replaced with James Sands. So they were both injured. That's why they were replaced.
Well, The Leon King one, did they elaborate on that? Is that going to be a long term?
Leon King was feeling nauseous, feeling sick throughout the first
okay.
half, and when he came on came in at half time, he said, "Well, I can't." I think he either said he couldn't continue, or it was decided that he wouldn't continue.
Right, okay, right. Thanks for clearing that up. Okay, folks, I think that'll do us there. A very disappointing afternoon at Ibrox. Rangers dropping 2 points at home to Livingston. As Jonny says, it doesn't get any easier. It's a trip to Napoli on Wednesday for match day 5 in the Champions League. Where do the Rangers go from here? Who knows? We'll be back Monday with looking ahead with all the fallout.
With you in Italy.
Yeah, with me in Italy. Yeah, I'm actually going to see Napoli tomorrow, taking on Roma for my sins. I'll be on a scouting mission, folks. I don't hold out much hope that we can get any positive result over there on Wednesday. They are flying at the moment, and Rangers, unfortunately, are so lackluster and turgid at the moment, it defies belief. But we'll be back on Monday to analyse the game in full detail, folks. Stay tuned to the website for that. And we'll look ahead, of course, to that match on Wednesday. But until then, well, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Ta-ra for now.